The air conditioning in the Bentley was set very low. Evan handed me a file. He wanted me to use myself as bait to lure the man in the document, his first love sweetheart. You don't need me to teach you how to do it, do you? Evan glanced at me, his tone casual. Seduction is something you're pretty good at. I opened the folder. Inside was a photo of a young man with a buzz cut, deep-set eyes, and a laid-back expression, radiating a certain rebellious charm. Galen. Male, 23 years old, a street thug. Evan rolled down the car window, lighting a cigarette. The smell of tobacco drifted into the car with the evening breeze. Make sure you dress more innocent, he said, twirling a lock of my hair with his fingers, smiling. The file says he doesn't like how you look now. In truth, I despised Evan's mocking tone. But I did need his money. 3 million. Enough to save a life. I closed the file and smiled. Deal. I turned to look at the woman in the mirror, feeling a sense of unfamiliarity. A simple white dress, black dyed hair straightened and tied into a ponytail. Not even wearing foundation. Is this really me? In the mirror, the innocent-looking student expertly lit a cigarette. I laughed. This was me? People had always described me as the most infamous social butterfly in our circle. All I cared about was money. Lucky or not, I had been born with good looks. At 16, my adoptive father sold me to a brothel, where I used my beauty to survive. At an age when other girls were still in their school uniforms, blooming like flowers in the classroom, I had already been plucked, my core rotted to the bone. 3 years ago, I got involved with Evan. He was the only son of his family, generous, and changed women more often than his clothes. I was the only woman he publicly acknowledged as his girlfriend. But really, I was just a more favored mistress. Because I had a pair of eyes that resembled his first love, Cecilia. I played her stand-in for 3 years. And a week ago, Cecilia returned to the country. I knew Evan would break up with me. What I didn't expect was that he'd end things by offering me to another man. The bar was buzzing with neon lights and loud music as I cautiously surveyed the surroundings. Sweetheart, are you drinking alone? The thick smell of smoke and alcohol hit me, making me feel slightly nauseous. A strange middle-aged man sat beside me, and after a few words, his hand was already creeping towards my waist. Smack. The sound of a slap was drowned out by the music. With trembling hands, I turned to run, but he grabbed me. I was kicked to the ground. But the punch I expected didn't come. When I opened my eyes, I saw Galen smashing a bottle over the guy's head. Glass shards flew everywhere as Galen cursed, hitting women? That's all you're good for? Get lost. The man got up, swearing, but was stopped by someone nearby. You trying to get yourself killed? That's Galen. This bar is his turf. Let's get out of here. Galen pulled me to my feet. His voice came through the music, looking for someone? I nodded. Who? I hesitated for a moment. My boyfriend. Galen flicked the ash from his cigarette and walked around the bar with me. We stopped in front of a booth. A young man was passionately kissing a stranger, completely lost in the moment. Galen stubbed out his cigarette. This one? I didn't say anything, just bit my lip hard. My fingers clenched and unclenched the fabric of my dress. Finally, the guy looked up. Irene? He pushed the girl away and ran towards me. Let me explain. No need. I took a step back, biting my lip, and grabbed Galen's hand. I came to break up with you. Did you really think I liked a spineless pretty boy like you? Let me introduce you to my new boyfriend. As I spoke, I wrapped my arms around Galen's neck and kissed him stiffly. Our breaths mingled, a faint taste of smoke spreading between us. Even the man I had hired to play my boyfriend looked stunned. Galen took me back to the private room. I covered my face, tears streaming through my fingers uncontrollably. He seemed unsure of what to do, squatting in front of me for a while, before awkwardly muttering, "Stop crying." I looked up at him. But, he was my first love. Tears welled up in my eyes again and fell. Galen grabbed a tissue and pressed it to my face. Cry over that guy? He's not worth it. He wiped my tears so roughly it hurt. Sniffling, I grabbed the cigarette from his hand, clumsily holding it between my fingers and taking a puff. I coughed so hard, my tears started again. Why are you, of all people, learning to smoke? Galen gave me a sideways glance, snatching the cigarette back and taking a natural drag. I tugged on his shirt. Can you drink with me? Seeing I was about to cry again, he agreed. That night, I drank 8 bottles of beer. I cried, laughed, and then vomited all over Galen. He helped me up, muttering curses under his breath, but never pushed me away. Galen brought me back to his place. He really thought I was just some heartbroken, naive girl. But in reality, growing up around men, acting was a basic skill. I figured he must be living decently, being the leader of a gang with dozens of followers. But he lived in a slum. The alley was old and filled with street vendors and tattered posters, the air thick with the scent of everyday life. Upstairs, he tossed me onto the bed. The hard mattress was cold and uncomfortable. I rolled around twice before finding a somewhat bearable position, my dress slipping down in the process. After a few seconds, I felt his hand touch my exposed shoulder, hot against my skin. I thought he was going to take off my dress, but instead, he pulled my neckline back up, covered me with a blanket, and left. He actually left. Galen spread a blanket on the floor. This man was impervious to everything, so I had no choice but to act like I'd just woken up, stumbling out of bed and crawling under his blanket. The thin summer quilt covered us both. I could smell the smoke on him. The next second, Galen pulled me out from under the covers. Go back to your own bed. No. I grabbed his hand and leaned in to kiss him. I broke up with him. No one wants me anymore. I gently brushed my lips against his, speaking with a tone full of grievance. Won't you keep me? I'm very obedient. I don't eat much, so I'm not expensive to take care of. I slurred my words, pretending to be drunk. This time, he didn't avoid me. He just stared at me with wide eyes. I could see my reflection in his pupils, a girl in a white dress with a high ponytail, looking innocent and pure. Nervously, I kissed him, my hands trembling as I tried to undress him. Galen's breathing grew heavier. Irene, he grabbed my hand, you're drunk. Do you know what you're doing? I know. I slipped my hand into his palm, his large hand engulfing mine. Fingers intertwined, I moved closer again, kissing his lips messily, biting awkwardly, unsure of myself. Finally, Galen couldn't resist any longer. He cursed under his breath, pressing his palm to the back of my head, deepening the kiss. On the narrow, hard bed, Galen held me tight. His hot palm moved down to my waist, soothing my shivers. I curled up in his arms, softly crying in pain. Shoo. He kissed my earlobe. Relax. Late into the night, Galen was already asleep. Suddenly, I felt something running from my nose. I wiped it with the back of my hand, and in the dim light, I could see it, a dark red stain. 1 drop, 2 drops. I grabbed a tissue and pressed it to my nose, then gently slipped out from under his arm. In the bathroom, I locked the door, rolled up the tissue and stuffed it into my nose, then undid the ponytail and lit a cigarette. I looked at the girl in the mirror. Her complexion was almost sickly pale, and her prominent collarbones bore faint love marks, Galen's marks. The file said he wasn't into women. But in reality, once he started, he was wilder than a beast. My arms and legs felt like they were going to fall apart from his rough handling. Irene? Galen's voice suddenly came from outside the bathroom. I froze, quickly putting out the cigarette. Yeah? What's up? I hurriedly opened the window for ventilation, threw the cigarette butt into the toilet, and hid the lighter. Galen leaned against the door, asking, Are you feeling okay? Yeah, I waved my hand to disperse the smoke, responding softly, my stomach's just a bit upset. My fault, his voice came through the door with a hoarse quality. Kept you there too long and didn't cover you with a blanket. I stayed silent, just watching the faint outline of his reflection on the frosted glass door. Broad shoulders, narrow waist, a classic V-shape. When the smoke finally cleared out, I stepped outside. Galen was leaning quietly against the wall, waiting. He reached over and lightly touched my loose hair. You look nice like this. The bedroom was just a few steps away, but he still picked up a jacket and draped it over my shoulders. Back in the room, I noticed he'd already changed the sheets. The old ones were folded at the foot of the bed. He picked them up and said, "I'll go wash these." I glanced over, taken aback. There were two small, distinct red spots on the sheet. He might be misunderstanding something here. I could tell he was inexperienced, fumbling his way through the whole night. The sound of water running and fabric scrubbing came from the bathroom. I shuffled over in my slippers, leaning against the doorframe to watch him. He was only wearing loose shorts, exposing tan skin as he squatted there scrubbing, with an unlit cigarette between his lips. This old bathroom. The scene unexpectedly felt a bit warm. I snapped back to reality as he washed his hands and then mischievously pressed his damp hand on my waist, cold enough to make me shrink into his chest. Galen wiped his hands dry on his shorts and then lifted me into his arms, cradling me carefully. His expression was unusually serious, like he was making a promise. "I'll take responsibility." "Okay." I buried my face in his chest, a bit shy, but my face showed no emotion. Galen carried me back to the old wooden bed. His hand moved from my hair to my cheek, and then slipped down to my shoulder strap. The creaky ceiling fan turned slowly, but the room's temperature rose steadily with his movements. He turned off the light. A gentle kind of recklessness. After all that, Galen quickly fell asleep. Once I was sure he was sound asleep, I slowly took out my phone, seeing an unread message. Sender, Evan. I lowered the screen brightness and opened it. Humiliation surged up, once again, for the countless time. "Come back within an hour. Take care of my physical needs." The casual tone, as if I were some disposable toy he could toss and pick up at will. And in truth, that's exactly what I was. I sat there, numb for a while. Then, I quietly got dressed, slipped out of the apartment. At the street, I hailed a taxi and wearily gave the driver an address. The driver glanced at me in the rearview mirror, his voice laced with a knowing tone. "Off to see your boyfriend?" He put an extra emphasis on those last three words. The apartment complex had notoriously high prices, with wealthy types often setting up their mistresses here. People around even referred to it as the mistress villa. I stared out the window, ignoring him. My thoughts drifted with the gentle jostling of the car. Casual flings had long become routine for me, but there was something in Galen's clumsy restraint that had unsettled me, leaving me unexpectedly shaken. Shaken, by what? I didn't even know. Annoyed, I rolled down the window and lit another cigarette. Someone like me has no right to feel anything. A few more nights with him would probably set things straight. The car came to a stop. I rummaged through my bag, handing the driver a $100 bill. "Keep the change." As he took the money, his hand slid over mine, lingering a little too long. This kind of small move had never bothered me before, but tonight, the sweaty touch unexpectedly made me feel disgusted. I grabbed my purse and swung it at his head. The driver cursed, holding his head. "Damn, just a midnight call to keep some guy company, what's wrong with a little touch? Playing the saint now, huh?" With that, he hit the gas, speeding off in a huff. The night breeze swept by, carrying his fading insult, "Slut." I'd heard the word countless times before. But tonight, it stung more than usual. I stubbed out my cigarette, snapped a picture of his license plate, and sent a complaint. Then, resigned, I turned and went inside. As I keyed in the first 3 digits of the apartment code, the door suddenly swung open. A heavy scent of alcohol hit me. The door shut behind me, plunging everything into darkness. I couldn't see anything but felt the weight press against my chest, and my clothes were pulled apart, rough and unfeeling. There was no preamble. He went straight for my undershorts, intent on venting his basest, dirtiest desires. I instinctively turned my body, leaving Evan grappling with thin air. Dodging? In the darkness, he gripped my shoulder hard. "I let you act all innocent, and now you think you're some kind of saint?" His fingers tugged at my hair, forcing my head down. I should be used to this. But tonight, something stirred inside, a long-buried sense of dignity, defiant. I pushed his hand away. Evan's breathing grew heavier. He was genuinely angry now. In the dimness, I saw him lean down, his tone slow and threatening. Tell me, what's the best way for a bedridden old lady to spend her last days? Starve her slowly? Or should some drunkard strangle her? Evan. I reached out to him, wanting to say something, but then the lights suddenly came on. The sudden brightness stung my eyes. The floor-length mirror reflected my disheveled appearance. He pushed me toward the mirror. Look, this is the real you. Irene, between us, you'll never have a say in what I want. I closed my eyes, almost laughing. Of course. After pretending for 2 days, I'd almost believed I was some girl who'd shyly cry out in pain. Just as Evan was about to take me, his phone suddenly rang. The screen blinked, revealing the caller's name, Cecilia. Evan's anger vanished in an instant. I stayed still, relieved. He adjusted his mood, quickly answering, "What is it?" "Okay, I'll be there soon." Evan let go of me. With my clothes torn, I went upstairs, changed, and left. It was already close to 3 a.m. I took a cab back to the old part of town. This time, the driver was a middle-aged woman who chatted non-stop about her unreliable husband and troublesome son. I listened quietly, genuinely feeling, "Ma'am, I envy you. A clean job. Loved ones she worried over." She looked at me as if I'd just told a joke, eyes wide. "Envy me? Don't be ridiculous, girl. Look at you, young, pretty, probably well off. That bag of yours? I know it costs thousands." I just smiled, saying nothing. The bag was something Evan had given me, thoughtlessly. And this seemingly youthful, pretty face was hiding rot beneath the surface. After paying, I was about to step out when she stopped me. "Girl." I turned back to look at her. On her weathered face was a sincere smile. She handed me my change, refusing to let me leave without it. Sometimes, I think, aside from being a little poor, I'm really quite lucky. And you're young and beautiful, you'll be just fine. I'm a good judge of people. You're going to be happy. It was the first time anyone had said anything like that to me. I paused, slowly accepting the change, clenching it tightly in my hand. A lump formed in my throat, and my voice came out hoarse. "Thank you." In the dim, quiet alleys of the old neighborhood, all the bustling noise was gone, leaving only scattered trash on the ground. As I approached Galen's building, I suddenly heard a familiar voice in a heated argument. That voice, unmistakable. 30 minutes ago, he was cursing at me, calling me fake. I focused, and sure enough, it was Evan, holding a slender girl in his arms. "Cecilia, haven't you had enough? What's so great about that loser you like?" Cecilia seemed drunk, barely able to stand, but she kept pushing him away, staring up at the third-floor window. She took out her phone, dialing a number. "Please, can you just come down and see me?" I couldn't hear what was said on the other end, but then I saw Cecilia start crying. She shook with each sob, tugging at anyone's protective instincts. Evan's eyes filled with pity. It seemed the call had ended. Then, I saw a familiar face appear in the third-floor window. The window opened, revealing Galen's face. He lit a cigarette and lazily stared down at Cecilia, sounding impatient. "Go home. We're not right for each other." After he spoke, he seemed to sense something, and suddenly looked in my direction. From 3 stories below, my gaze met Galen's. Naturally, my vision wasn't sharp enough to catch his expression, only his movement as he turned around. Moments later, someone came rushing out of the building. "Galen." Cecilia shook off Evan's hand as he tried to steady her, staggering towards Galen with a quivering voice. "Galen, can we talk?" "Not interested." He walked past her straight toward me. In the dim alleyway, a single flickering streetlight cast a faint glow over Galen. A shadow fell over me. The coat he had been carrying was draped over my shoulders. "Where have you been?" He took my hand without hesitation, frowning slightly. "Your hand is freezing." In the distance, Evan was also looking my way. Under the weight of their gazes, I kept my composure, tugging at the corner of Galen's jacket with a bit of hesitation. I had a stomachache and went to buy some medicine. Checked a few places but no luck, so I had to go home to grab this. I pulled out a half-empty pack of pills from my bag to prove it. Galen was straightforward and trusting. If I said it, he believed it. Tell me next time. I'll get it for you. Then he scooped me up effortlessly, one arm holding down my skirt against the wind. Who is she? Cecilia's trembling lips had turned pale as she walked towards us. Galen, 2 days ago, you told me you weren't interested in relationships. Then who is she? Sorry. Galen sidestepped her, leading me past, wasn't interested before. He glanced down at me, but I changed my mind yesterday. Curled up in Galen's arms, I caught a glimpse of Evan's dark expression as we passed. And so, I ended up with Galen. He was simple when it came to feelings, he believed whatever I told him. To him, I was Irene, the girl with no family, who dropped out of school early to work. Naive, vulnerable. A delicate flower in need of his protection. The day after we got together, he took me to his favorite bar, the Island. A group of guys with a rough air about them gathered around, looking like they'd just stumbled upon a juicy secret. Galen, is this stone-cold heart of yours finally melting? Get real. One of them nudged him, with that look on his face. I bet he didn't get much sleep last night. Shut up. Galen grabbed a pack of cigarettes to throw at them, then wrapped his arm around me. They didn't dare tease him again, switching to a uniform "Hello, sis," that drowned out the thumping music. Embarrassed, I buried my face in his chest. But truthfully, I felt like laughing a little. All of Galen's friends were like him, rough and simple. They didn't really come across as tough guys, they were more like kids playing at being rebels. Worried I might be uncomfortable, none of them dared make any rude jokes or even smoke. It was as if they were terrified I'd be bothered. Irene, a guy to my left, finally said after a couple of drinks, looking at me with curiosity, "Tell us, how'd you win Galen over?" "Yeah, tell us." Another joined in, "You don't know this, but he's been single for years. Girls line up around the block for him, but he doesn't even give them a glance. We seriously thought he was into guys. Every time we went to collect debts, we practically sewed our pants on in case he tried something funny." The group broke into laughter, and I laughed with them. Then someone said, "We used to bet on what type Galen would go for." We all agreed it'd be someone pure and innocent. Someone just like you. I kept smiling, not saying a word. Truthfully, I was itching for a smoke. My hand rubbed against my thigh under the table, trying to keep the urge at bay. But then, from the corner of my eye, I saw a flicker of light. Galen had lit a cigarette and held it out to me. No need to hold back. He gently tucked my hair behind my ear, smiling, "I smelled the smoke on you last night." I was stunned, but my body reacted instinctively. My right hand reached out and took the cigarette. With practiced ease, I flicked off the ash between my fingers. Everyone else froze, staring at this supposedly innocent girl. Only Galen laughed. He lit a cigarette for himself and even tapped it lightly against mine, grinning. The others finally snapped out of it. They all pulled out their cigarettes, lighting up around us. "You should have told us you smoke." We'd been holding it in, didn't even dare touch a lighter. I chuckled but didn't say anything. I wasn't sure how Galen truly felt. Galen got along well with his friends, with no air of superiority. They joked and laughed, passing drinks around. Irene. The guy across from me had black-framed glasses, looking more like a scholar than one of Galen's crowd. He pushed his glasses up, asking with a teasing smile, "How many secrets do you have that Galen doesn't know?" Though his tone was light, I saw a challenge in his eyes, layered with something darker. Beneath it all was a raw desire. I got the feeling he knew something about me. But he didn't say anything more, just joined in the laughter and steered the conversation elsewhere. After inhaling so much smoke, my chest felt tight. I took a sip of juice when my phone buzzed softly in my pocket. "I'm going to the restroom." Galen nodded. His friends were clamoring for a dice game, and he was losing badly, downing drink after drink. There was no one else in the restroom. I leaned against the wall, lit a cigarette, but the nauseous feeling in my chest wouldn't settle. I'd only taken a couple of puffs when the door opened. A pregnant woman, her belly showing slightly, walked in. I put out my cigarette and opened a window to clear the smoke. "Thank you." Her voice was soft and gentle. I nodded, but that queasy feeling in my chest only grew stronger. Until I couldn't hold it back any longer. I rushed into a stall, barely able to shut the door before I doubled over, retching. It was intense, as if I was bringing up bile itself. "Are you okay?" Her soft voice came from behind me, and she reached over to rub my back. "You're throwing up so badly, blood." She gasped, "Did you just throw up blood?" The violent retching had blurred my vision briefly. After a few seconds, things came back into focus. It wasn't as serious as she made it sound, there were just a few spots of red. Gently nudging her out of the stall, I flushed the toilet and took the tissue she handed me to wipe my mouth. "Thanks. Are you all right?" She looked at me with concern, her face soft and well cared for, like someone who had been lovingly sheltered. "I'm fine." I splashed my face at the sink, and as I left, I saw a man waiting outside the restroom. When he saw me, he looked past me to his wife, worry in his eyes. "Why were you gone so long?" He carefully took his wife's hand. "Let's go home. You've seen the bar, it's too noisy for the baby." He coaxed her gently. "If you still want to have fun, I'll play games with you at home, okay?" She nodded, though she looked back at me. Just then, someone stepped past them towards me. It was Galen. "Is he your boyfriend?" she whispered to me. She was just. I borrowed a pack of tissues from her. I interrupted with a smile. "Thank you." Her husband laughed, tapping her nose affectionately. "Just a pack of tissues, and you're telling her boyfriend? Such a little money grubber." With that, he led her away. I leaned against the wall, catching my breath, and looked up at Galen. "What are you doing here?" "You were gone for a while, so I came to check." "I just went to the restroom, what could possibly happen?" I followed him back. My hair, tied back, was bothering me, so I reached up to adjust it. The next second, I felt a gentle tug as Galen slipped the hair tie off. He looped it around his wrist and said, "It looks good down like this." "Do whatever feels comfortable," Galen said, glancing at me out of the corner of his eye. He always gave me this impression of a rough yet tender strength. Then he added, "When you're with me, you can just be yourself. No need to hide anything." Smiling, I teased, "Do you even know the real me?" He looked at me quietly, then shook his head. I just smiled, saying nothing more. It's exactly because he doesn't know that he can say things like that so confidently. Galen left early today. Before he went, he kissed me lightly on the cheek. He thought I didn't notice. But actually, I'd woken up just as dawn was breaking and had been lying there, nestled in his arms, watching the sky lighten through the window. For me, it was a rare moment of peace. After he left, I went to the hospital. I held a bunch of test results, carelessly folded together, light papers that felt impossibly heavy. I sat there, listening as the doctor droned on. But honestly, I barely registered what she was saying, just like the last few times. "Thanks, Dr. Jack." I smiled, lying easily. "I've heard what you said. I'll think about it." The doctor adjusted his glasses, sounding resigned as he corrected me for the nth time. "Jeff. Sorry." I slowly organized the test results and then asked, "Doctor, do you think there's an afterlife?" He hesitated for a second before saying, "I'm an atheist, so I don't believe in that. I think it's better to live this life fully." "Yeah. About my condition." "Exactly." I cut him off, putting away the results. "Well then, see you next time, Dr. Jack." "Fine." I walked down the hallway slowly. People are strange. We adapt our desires to our circumstances. After coming here a few times, the fear of death I once felt has started to blur into something like a longing for release. After leaving the hospital, I hailed a cab to another, private hospital. 3rd floor, inpatient ward. I pushed open the door to the faint smell of disinfectant. "Mom." I sat down beside the bed, looking at the frail woman with graying hair. "How have you been these past few days? Did the nurse turn on the TV for you to watch your favorite show? Did you miss me?" The questions were mostly for myself. With her oxygen mask on, she couldn't reply, she could only squeeze my hand weakly when I held hers. Her name was Marion, my adoptive mother. I'd been kidnapped at 4 and sold to a gang that forced me to beg on the streets. When I was 7, she and my adoptive father took me in. She'd always treated me well. She'd had a daughter of her own, born late in life, the same age as me, but that daughter had gone missing at 5 and was never found. When she saw me on the street, something in her softened, and she decided to bring me home and raise me. My adoptive father was a drinker and gambler, often betting large sums for the time, enough to start constant fights between them. When he lost too much or drank too much, he'd pull my mother's hair, berating her for not being able to bear a son, calling her a useless hen. Sometimes he would even hit me. But my mom would always shield me. She'd pull me close, hold on tight, and tell me, "June, don't be scared. My real name is Irene." June was the name of her lost daughter, the daughter she raised me as. At 16, my adoptive father sold me to a place no child should ever be. He'd slipped something into my drink, leaving me too weak to resist. The details have faded over time, but I remember a room filled with people, mostly men, who laughed and sneered through clouds of smoke. I remember hands pulling at my clothes. I remember pain. I was terrified, desperate to run, but there was no way out. Until the door burst open, and my mother stumbled in. She screamed and fought her way to me, shielding me as she tried to drag me away. But they stopped her. That night is just a blur now, something I never dare think of again. Eventually, she did manage to get me out. Bruised and bleeding, she took me to the police. She held me close, soothing me in whispers, despite her own injuries. Later, when my adoptive father sold me again, she tried to find me, but was hit by a car on her way. That left her paralyzed. At 16, I didn't have the strength to fight him. In the years since, I've spent all the money I earned to pay for her treatment. I imagine she must resent it. She hardly speaks to me anymore. Today, I wore a white dress, with my dyed black hair falling neatly over my shoulders. She stared at me for a long, long time. Then she cried. Tears slipped down the deep creases in her face, darkening the pillow under her head. She gestured weakly for me to take off her oxygen mask, wanting to say something. I hesitated but did as she asked, knowing she could only go without it briefly. She took my hand, her grip faint. "The thing I regret most was bringing you home." I froze, feeling a sting in my chest. I patted her pale hand gently, whispering, "Yes, if you hadn't found me, then you wouldn't." She interrupted me with a hoarse voice, barely audible. "If someone else had adopted you, you would have grown up happily. It's my fault." Her breath grew weaker, so I quickly replaced her mask. She couldn't say any more, but I could see the rest in her clouded eyes. If someone else had taken me in, even a poor family, I could have grown up safe and unscarred. If that had happened, I would have turned out the way she wanted. Suddenly, I couldn't hold back the tears. My adoptive father died 5 years ago. A heart attack. He'd collapsed, crawling slowly toward the cabinet with his medicine. I just sat there, watching him. Only after he made it to the cabinet did I open the drawer, take out the pills, and throw them aside. I watched that demon writhe in pain, defiant, dying right before me. Then, and only then, did I finally call for help. Later, I scattered his ashes in as many places as I could. The toilet, the pigsty, the sewer. Anywhere filthy. But no matter what I did, nothing could make up for the life he'd stolen from me. Maybe I'd been too worked up, because as I calmed down, my mother drifted into a deep sleep. I sat by her for a while, feeling my stomach twist with pain, and was just about to leave when someone walked in. Evan's gaze settled on my collar, darkening slightly. It was from a love bite Galen had left the night before. "Were you supposed to seduce that thug, or are you just addicted to sleeping around now?" He sneered, as usual. I said nothing. This wasn't a public hospital, and Evan was the largest shareholder here. I'd tried a few times to transfer my mother to another facility, but each attempt was blocked. Unless he agreed, I couldn't take her anywhere. Looking at my mother sleeping soundly on the bed, I lowered my voice. "Let's talk outside." But as I turned to go, Evan grabbed my shoulder. "Leaving already?" He gripped me tightly. "Feeling guilty?" His thumb brushed over the mark on my neck, and I saw the gleam of desire in his eyes. Before I could push him away, Evan pressed me down on an empty cot beside us. My guards are at the door. No one's coming in. The implication was unmistakable. Are you insane? I whispered. My mother is right here. Perfect, he replied, his tone casual. Let her see what her precious daughter has done to save her. I reached for my phone, but he snatched it first and tossed it away. What's wrong? Galen can touch you, but I can't. He loomed over me, pinning me down, his mocking words eroding what was left of my pride. I started to struggle. Then I bit down hard on his arm. The taste of blood filled my mouth, and Evan, furious, slapped me across the face. Pain shot through my cheek as my ear began to ring. The only small mercy was that my mother kept sleeping. Recently, she's been so weak that she often drifts into a deep sleep for hours, nearly impossible to wake. Good. At least she doesn't have to see her daughter in this humiliating state. Swallowing the taste of blood, I stilled, out of strength to resist. Evan leaned down, holding me tightly now. Sorry, he murmured, almost gently. He looked at the red mark he'd left on my face, his tone softer. I lost my temper. Irene, I've changed my mind. He pulled me closer. It feels strange without you by my side. I'll find someone else for the job. You're coming back. Madman. Evan, like so many of the rich, does whatever he pleases, handing out money on a whim. When they're upset, they have 100 ways to mess with people. Self-centered and cold. As he lowered his head to kiss me, I didn't flinch but quietly said, I heard Cecilia is moving in next to Galen today. Just one sentence was enough to stop Evan in his tracks. What? I glanced at my watch. She's probably already there by now. Once again, Cecilia unwittingly stepped in between Evan and me. And I wasn't lying. When Evan arrived, Cecilia was at the door next to Galen's, directing movers. Put that table in front of the window, she instructed. That's my favorite antique vase, so be careful. Put it on that shelf over there. Irritated, Evan pulled her aside. You're sure about moving in here? Of course. She shook off his hand. I think it's perfect. Cecilia came from a prominent family business in town, born with a silver spoon. She'd likely never lived anywhere other than in high-end neighborhoods, let alone a modest apartment complex. Even though I didn't know her well, I could tell she'd been brought up in a privileged way. She had a refined air, but wasn't snobbish or arrogant. When it came to Evan, Cecilia was unfiltered. She didn't even let him inside and promptly sent him away. Leaning against the doorway, I felt a twisting ache somewhere inside me. Not wanting to take painkillers again, I lit a cigarette. Cecilia seemed to dislike the smoke, fanning it away but saying nothing as she continued to direct the movers. The sofa's pure leather, so don't scratch it. Just as she finished speaking, the workers, hastening with the sofa, accidentally brushed it against a cabinet. Unnoticed, a nail was sticking out from the cabinet's side, leaving a small tear in the leather. The worker's face instantly changed, and a young guy, fresh out of school, turned pale as he stammered, asking for the cost. Cecilia gave him a sideways look. Could you even afford it? That tear's worth several months' salary. The poor guy's face paled even more. Forget it, Cecilia sighed, waving him off. Just be more careful. My things are all pretty expensive. If you can't afford to replace them, you'd better handle them more carefully. I tilted my head, observing. Cecilia was tough with words, but soft-hearted underneath. Later, as I tied an apron and was cooking in Galen's kitchen, Cecilia knocked on the door. Care to join me for tea? I paused for a couple of seconds, spatula in hand, then said, sure. Next door, Cecilia's furniture filled the small rental unit. On the table, she'd laid out an impressive tea spread, nearly covering the entire surface. She poured me a cup of black tea, its aroma rich and inviting. Would you like to hear the story of me and Galen? She asked suddenly. Sure. It was barely a story, just a scene from 3 years ago when Cecilia, ditching her bodyguards one night, went to a bar alone. She drank too much, and some guy started hitting on her, crossing a line until Galen stepped in. In truth, that bar was under Galen's protection, much like the one I used to frequent, where he'd intervene whenever there was trouble. But sometimes love comes that straightforward and intense for wealthy girls. She fell in love with the hero who rescued her and started pursuing him. But her family eventually pressured her to leave the country. Even after 3 years abroad, Galen was never far from her thoughts. Her first move upon returning was to find him. Her tea was still steaming when her story concluded. Nibbling on a cookie, Cecilia hesitated, then asked, "Are you the one who's been with Evan for 3 years?" She asked politely. After all, no one would use girlfriend to describe me to the public. Most people just scoff, saying, "Her? Just Evan's mistress." I smiled, not answering, implicitly confirming. "Did Evan ask you to get close to Galen?" I took a sip of tea. "Sorry, no comment." Cecilia looked at me for a long time. Just when I wondered if she'd throw the hot tea in my face, she let out a sigh. "I can tell that Galen really cares for you. He's incredibly stubborn, so even if he found out that you approached him with ulterior motives, he'd still choose to be with you. But I moved here because I want a fair chance. I've always known that if you want something, you can't just wish for it, you have to go after it yourself." She looked at me steadily, her tone calm. "With Galen, I can't say it's a sure thing, but I'll do everything in my power. Irene, I'm confident. I'll make sure I'm the one by his side." I took a small sip of the warm tea, and after a while, gave a quiet smile. I didn't say anything, I didn't know what to say. Honestly, I felt Cecilia's persistence matched well with Galen's personality. We tacitly let the topic drop, chatting casually about random things until a knock interrupted us. Galen stood at the door, holding a bag. "Irene, let's go home." Just a few simple words, but they left me momentarily stunned. "Irene, let's go home." Only my mother used to call me that way. She was the only person in this world who loved me. But most of the time, it sounded like she was saying, "June." I knew that every time she looked at me, she was remembering the daughter who disappeared, one who would have been my age. I snapped back, realizing Galen was still at the door, looking straight at me, waiting. Just looking at me. I gathered myself and, in a dry voice, replied, "All right." Following Galen back, I watched as he placed a bag on the dining table and carefully opened it, revealing a collection of beautifully crafted little cakes. Colorful and in various flavors. I was slightly taken aback. Over the years, I'd received plenty of gifts from men, money, jewelry, flowers, luxury watches. I wanted their money, they wanted my body, an unspoken arrangement that benefited us both. But it was the first time anyone had treated me like a girl, bringing me a bunch of adorable little sweets. He opened another bag, revealing an assortment of bubble teas. Seeing my silence, Galen nervously rubbed his temples. "Don't like them?" "They said girls usually like these things." He moved as if to put the bag away. "No problem, I can give them to someone else." "I like them." I walked over, picking up a strawberry-flavored cake and spooned a small bite into my mouth. The cream melted slowly on my tongue, and sweetness flooded my senses. I'd never had anything like it before. I didn't like sweets, I always felt they were for people who lived happy lives. And I didn't deserve that. "Tasty," I said, holding a plastic spoon to my lips, "very sweet." Galen quickly handed me a bubble tea. Even as my stomach churned, I kept spooning in bite after bite. Irene had grown up in hardship, had endured so much to survive, there was no pain she hadn't faced. But today, a taste of sweetness left her at a loss. It was only then that I realized how starved I truly was for real affection, despite knowing everything there was about seduction. A few little desserts made me feel cared for. Pathetic. My eye stung, a tear slipping as I lowered my head and fumbled for a cigarette to steady myself. Galen took the cigarette from me. "You can smoke, but don't turn to this when you're upset, it's bad for you." He knelt down in front of me, gazing up with a quiet intensity, looking like a devoted dog somehow. "Not happy?" "No." I sniffed. "It's good. It's just. I feel like I missed out on enjoying good things like this before." Galen laughed and ruffled my hair. "I'll get them for you every day from now on. Then I'd get fat. I'd still like you." Nestled in his arms, we went back and forth, bantering like any ordinary couple. Except. Before I knew it, we ended up on the bed. He pulled the curtains. When his thrusts became almost too much, he cupped his hand behind my head to protect it. Galen. My hand trailed down his shoulder, brushing against his collarbone. You got a tattoo? Yeah. He leaned down to kiss me. You like it? Honestly? It's ugly. Who tattoos someone else's name there? Under his left collarbone, the name Irene was inked close to his heart. I stopped myself several times from saying something, but eventually I couldn't help it. You tattooed my name. What'll you do if you get a new girlfriend? He wrapped his arms around me, his voice rough. Why would I need another girlfriend? With you, I've got enough. Galen buried his face into my shoulder. I never even thought about love before. If we ever broke up, I wouldn't go looking for anyone else. I froze. Break up? Did he really believe we were in a genuine relationship? Galen. Galen. I wanted to have a proper conversation with him, to explain why I had approached him in the first place, but the image of my mother's aged, frail face flashed through my mind. The words at the tip of my tongue were swallowed back down. I traced my name on his skin with my fingertips, slowly. Does it hurt? It doesn't. He lowered his head, silencing all the things I couldn't say. At 4 a.m., my phone rang, waking me up. Galen answered it for me and handed it to my ear. Hello. Is this Ms. Irene? Your mother has passed away. The sharp pain in my palm, where my nails had dug deep, proved that this phone call wasn't a dream. Galen heard it too. He didn't ask a single question, just quickly got out of bed, dressed, and accompanied me to the hospital. On the way there, I stared out the window at the fast-passing scenery. I didn't say a word. I didn't shed a tear. My eyes were dry, unbearably so, without the slightest hint of moisture. I thought to myself, I must be a heartless person. At a time like this, I can't even cry. We arrived at the hospital, and everything was a blur. I saw the doctors, the nurses. After what felt like a long time, I was led into a room, where I saw a body covered with a white sheet. Someone once alive, now covered in white, with no sound, no breath. I walked over in a daze, and held her hand. It was stiff and cold. Only then did I truly feel the weight of separation. A familiar nurse gently patted my shoulder from beside me. She took out her own breathing tube early this morning. She chose to go on her own terms. Why? I had tried so hard to save her. Why did she give up on herself? At the cemetery, I remembered that day in the hospital room when Evan had pinned me down on the caregiver's bed. Let her see what her good daughter is willing to do to save her. In an instant, all my strength seemed to drain out of me. I slumped against the bed, slowly sliding down, only to be caught by Galen as he pulled me into his arms. I'm here. Outside the hospital room, he kept repeating to me, over and over again, that he was still here. That he would stay with me. His soft reassurances finally broke through my foggy mind, and I unconsciously clung to his arm, whispering. She knew. She wasn't asleep. Galen didn't understand, but he patiently comforted me. Then the nurse handed me a note. This was found under your mother's pillow. It's meant for you. It was just a thin piece of paper, but it took me a long time to open it. The handwriting wasn't hers. She must have asked a caregiver to write it for her. It was messy. There were only a few lines. June wasn't lost. She died when she was 4. I just never wanted to accept that truth. I almost gave up on life back then, until I found you and brought you home. Irene, you gave me hope to keep going. Mom doesn't want to be a burden to you anymore. She said. Irene is the kindest, purest girl in my heart. She always will be. I held that note, laughing and crying at the same time. Tears finally fell, soaking into the paper. I thought to myself. She's just gone to be June's mother now. The entire funeral was arranged by Galen. He wore a black suit and stayed by my side, sending my mother off one last time. He stood before her gravestone and made a solemn promise. I promise I will protect Irene. I won't let her suffer again. I will guard her with my life. Each time he spoke, he knocked his head heavily against the ground. His brothers behind him, though silent, followed suit. The sound of their heads hitting the ground echoed through the space. I stared at Galen's back, and out of nowhere, a line I had once read came to mind. I longed to be cherished all my life. To be kept safe, gently cared for, sheltered from fear, spared from pain, and protected from drifting aimlessly, without a place to belong. I've always been someone who doesn't believe in love. But in this moment, I couldn't help but think, maybe I've truly found my home. Even me, someone who never dares to hope or dream, couldn't stop myself from thinking. If only Galen had been there when I was 16, how different things might have been. He would have broken into that room and taken me away. But there's no if in this world. No minute we can rewind. All I can do is quietly hold on to the hem of his coat, hoping that this imperfect me can stay with him a little longer. After my mother's death, my health started to deteriorate. I grew thinner by the day. My stomach was always in knots, racked with pain. Sometimes, I would wake up in the middle of the night from the agony, feeling as if someone had stabbed a knife into my belly. When I couldn't bear it anymore, I'd take 2 pills, then quietly curl up in Galen's arms. I didn't dare wake him, so I just traced his face with my eyes over and over. I never wanted Galen to notice my condition, but one night, while he was lifting me up and pinning me against the window, he frowned. "Why are you getting even thinner?" He squeezed my waist with his large hands. "There's no flesh left at all." He insisted on taking me to the hospital, but I wrapped my arms around his neck, kissed him, and said, "No, I hate the smell of disinfectant. It's just an old problem, just a bit of stomach trouble." I playfully pinched his waist. "It's your fault anyway. You're always so busy, you don't even make sure I eat properly. Eating takeout all the time is why my stomach's acting up." I hugged his waist tighter, pushing down the sadness. "Can you stop being so busy? Spend more time with me." I was scared. If we waited any longer, I wouldn't have time left to be with him. "Okay." Galen held me carefully in his arms. "Starting tomorrow, I won't go anywhere. I'll stay home with you." Galen never lies to me. But the next morning, when I woke up, the bed beside me was already empty. I reached out to touch it. No warmth. "It's fine, he's just busy." I told myself to be understanding. Just as I was sitting up, the door suddenly opened. Galen walked in wearing the pink apron I had bought him, carrying breakfast. "Go wash up, I made your favorite, tomato and egg noodles." I stared for a long moment. Then I smiled. "Okay." To be honest, Galen's cooking was nothing to brag about. Even the simplest bowl of noodles, the tomatoes were hard, the egg was in little bits, and he had added too much salt. But I still ate it all. Lately, Galen really did put off work to stay home with me. Sometimes, he'd even take me for a walk downstairs, or we'd go shopping at the supermarket. As we walked past a glass window, I saw our reflections, faint and blurred, and for a second, I felt like we were an old married couple. Galen was so good to me that even his friends often teased him, saying that he didn't seem like Galen anymore, but rather like an old servant. Actually, I never knew why Galen liked me. Until one night, I went downstairs to buy cigarettes and rummaged through his wallet for some change, only to find a photo tucked in the inner pocket. It was an old picture, blurry and pixelated. But I could still tell that the girl in the pleated skirt looked a lot like me. On the bed, Galen shifted in his sleep. I hurriedly put the photo back and returned the wallet to its place. In that moment of discovering Galen's secret, I felt so cowardly. I slipped on my slippers and went downstairs for some air. So this is why Galen was so good to me. It's fine. After all, it's not the first time I've been someone's stand-in. I sat on the stairs, trying to comfort myself. But then, out of nowhere, it started to rain. Recently, Evan had been going next door to see Cecilia frequently, but more often than not, he'd be turned away. The walls of our apartments were thin, and I could often hear them arguing. One night, their fight was especially loud. The sound of glass shattering rang out, followed by Cecilia's sharp words. "Why would I ever love someone like you, a spoiled rich kid who does nothing? What's there to love about you? Your selfishness? Your fake displays of affection that only you believe? She laughed bitterly. You say you love me so much you could die, but as soon as I went abroad, you spent those 3 years finding replacements for me. Evan, I went abroad, not died. If you had followed me across the Atlantic back then, maybe I would have been moved by you. But you didn't, did you? Cecilia's words hit like a hammer, leaving Evan speechless. Separated by a wall, I couldn't hear Evan's response. It was quiet next door. No more drama to witness, so I was about to wash up and sleep, when suddenly, my phone rang. It was from an unknown number. Hello? Is this Irene? The voice sounded familiar. Before I could ask, the caller introduced himself. It's Jeff. I paused for a moment, then smiled. Dr. Jack. There was a brief silence on the other end, but Jeff didn't dwell on the name mix-up. Instead, he advised. I know it's your choice whether to get treated or not. As a doctor, I can't interfere. But I still want to urge you, please, start treatment early. If it's about the cost, I can help you reach out to charities. Thank you, Dr. Jack. I walked into the bathroom, locked the door, and whispered, I decided not to go through with the treatment. But you're still so young. If I get treated, will I survive? He hesitated. You might live a few more months. I lit a cigarette, watching as the smoke blurred the reflection of my pale face in the mirror. How would I live? Like my mother, so frail she couldn't even take care of her own basic needs, lying on a hospital bed, wasting away? I'd rather not have those extra months. Dr. Jack, I don't want to go out that way. Thank you for your kindness, but I'll make my own decision. Good night, Dr. Jack. I hung up. Galen had gone out to buy dinner. The bathroom was quiet, and it wasn't until the cigarette burned down to my fingers that I snapped back to reality. Honestly, when I first found out I was sick, I was terrified of dying. That's why, for Evan's $3 million, I agreed to seduce Galen. The money wasn't just for my mother, it was for me too. Truth is, I'm just an ordinary person. Afraid of death, clinging to life. If not, I would have long sacrificed myself for my innocence. I endured all the humiliation, swallowed all the bitterness, just to keep living. To live with my mother. Just to survive. It's that simple. But also, so hard. My mother is gone. And I didn't make it either. Fate has never been kind to me, except it let me meet Galen. Though, even he is just looking at someone else's shadow through me. My whole life, I've been living in other people's shadows. I've never truly been myself. 2 months later, I got another text from Evan. He sent me an address, commanding me to meet him there. I blocked his number without hesitation. Another call came in, which I ignored. Eventually, I turned off my phone altogether. But after dinner, Galen suddenly received a call. There was a group of drunk men causing trouble at the bar, smashing up half the place. You stay and finish your meal. I'll go handle it. I'll be back soon. I couldn't help but grab his sleeve. Be careful. Don't worry. Galen left quickly. I stayed at home, waiting for him, but I couldn't shake the feeling of unease. Barely a few minutes after he left, there was an urgent knock at the door. My heart skipped a beat. I thought maybe he had forgotten something. Without thinking, I opened the door. But it wasn't Galen standing there. It was Evan. I tried to close the door immediately, but he blocked it with his body. The door slammed open. Evan locked it behind him. The strong smell of alcohol hit me. He had been drinking. His eyes were bloodshot as he stared at me. Irene, you've fallen for that guy, haven't you? My hand slid into my pocket, feeling for my phone, as I tried to remain calm. Yes. I had Galen set as my emergency contact. As soon as the call connected, Evan lunged at me, pinning me against the wall. His bloodshot eyes reflected my helplessness. Irene, I can't believe I'm starting to regret this. Just like in the past, he twirled a strand of my hair around his finger. Seeing you with Galen makes my blood boil. It hurts more than seeing Cecilia fall for him. He leaned in, trying to kiss me. I turned my head, his lips brushing down my cheek. Don't pull away. Evan grabbed my face hard. It's not like this is the first time. What are you pretending for? Irene, someone like you, who climbed her way up through men, surely doesn't think she's still playing the virtuous card, right? He sneered. I must have been out of my mind to still think about you. Then, without caring about my struggles, he began tearing at my clothes. Evan had always been like this. Never considering anyone's feelings, forceful, domineering, selfish. Like a wild animal, driven only by base instincts. And I was too weak to push him off. I pulled my phone from my pocket and slammed it against his forehead. Evan grunted and let go instantly. The metal edge of the phone left a gash on his forehead, blood trickling down between his brows. Suddenly, I heard the sound of the door unlocking. Panic surged through me. I didn't want Galen to see me like this, disheveled and exposed. But before I could move, Evan grabbed me tightly again. He held me in place, waiting for Galen to walk in. And then, the door opened. What Galen saw was me, standing there in a state of disarray. To anyone else, it would have looked like the aftermath of an affair. Behind Galen were a few of his friends. Seeing the scene, their eyes immediately flared with anger. Who the hell are you, and what gives you the right to touch Irene? Evan yanked my wrist, laughing coldly. Galen, don't tell me you really think you've been sleeping with some pure flower? Don't be naive. She's rotten to the core. He pulled me closer, causing me to stumble. She's no treasure. Just a whore I've already used. Galen's fist silenced him. Evan was knocked to the ground, clutching his face. Galen, are you insane? One word from me, and you and your friends are dead men. Oh, really? Galen's voice was cold, and he hit Evan again. Blow after blow. Evan didn't have the strength to fight back. I clutched at my clothes, struggling to calm my breath. Two of Galen's friends walked over, avoiding my gaze as they handed me their jackets. Put this on. Don't worry, we'll deal with him. I slowly took the jacket and draped it over myself. At first, I thought Galen was just venting, but he wasn't stopping. His friends grew anxious and rushed to pull him back. Galen, enough. You're going to kill him. If anything happens, the Fu family won't let this slide. But Galen shook them off and headed to the kitchen. When he came back, he was holding a watermelon knife. He lifted it, ready to strike. Evan's face turned pale as he scrambled for the door, but Galen chased after him. Galen! My voice trembled as I ran to stand in his way, trying to take the knife from him. Don't do this. Give me the knife. Please? Galen's eyes were bloodshot. Finally, he let go of the knife. His friends quickly grabbed it from him. Evan had already fled, the half-open door revealing him rushing down the stairs in panic. "Fuck," one of Galen's friends cursed suddenly. Galen has a family, but I don't. I'll kill that bastard, even if it costs me my life. Before anyone could stop him, he stormed out the door. There was a commotion downstairs. Galen's voice was hoarse. Go stop him. Let him cool off first. The two remaining friends exchanged a glance, then quickly left. Before leaving, they gently closed the door behind them. Galen and I stood in the mess, neither of us saying a word. I had always known this day would come, the day he'd find out about my dirty past. But now that it was here, I didn't know how to face him. I could only suppress the tremors in my hands as I pulled out a cigarette, using the act of lighting it to hide my anxiety. When the firelight flared up, I pretended to be casual and said, "As you can see, Galen, I'm really not the innocent girl you might have thought I was." I bit my lip. I'm really just a mess. Before I could finish, Galen silenced me with a kiss. He held me tightly, kissing me with no restraint, like he was trying to pull me into his very being, wanting to fuse me with him. His kiss was urgent, forceful, like he needed to prove something. It wasn't until I was almost out of breath that he let go. His eyes were red. Galen cupped my face. I know. I know everything. His voice was slow and deliberate. I know you approached me because of Evan. I know the blood that night was something you did on purpose. I know all about your past. But as long as you don't bring it up, I can pretend it never happened for the rest of my life. It's not that I don't care, I just don't want you to be burdened by it. As he spoke of my past, Galen's eyes reddened before mine did. His grip on my face tightened slightly, and he sighed. I only hate myself for not meeting you sooner. If. He paused, his voice trembling. If I had met you back then, I rose onto my tiptoes, wrapped my arms around his neck, and kissed him. That silenced the rest of his words. Galen, there's no such thing as if in this world. But your blatant affection gave me the courage to accept the outcome. For a moment, I wanted to ask him about that photo, but the words got stuck in my throat, and I swallowed them back. Forget it. In what's left of my life, I just want to stay by his side. Even if it's just as a shadow. Someone like me doesn't belong in the light, so being a shadow suits me just fine. After that incident, Galen treated me just as he always had. His friends never brought up that day again either. But Cecilia moved out. When she directed the workers to move out her luxury furniture, she didn't shout orders like she usually would. Instead, she leaned quietly against the wall, watching. If you looked closely, her eyes were a little red. Irene. She turned her head slightly and whispered to me, Galen really loves you. He'd give up his life for you. She shrugged. I admit defeat. I didn't know what to say. When it comes to love, I've always been a little slow. But Cecilia wasn't the type to hold a grudge. She quickly changed the subject. My dad and Evan had a falling out recently over some business issues. Don't worry, I'll help my dad take down Evan's company. Consider it payback for the pain he put you through. She smiled. Think of it as a gift for you and Evan. I thanked her slowly. Cecilia is actually a good person. She's got the pride of a rich girl, but she's not spoiled. She loves and hates with all her heart. For a fleeting moment, I even wanted to tell her about my illness. I wanted to tell her that after I die, she and Galen could be together, they'd make a good match. But I swallowed those words. I realized it would be an insult to both Galen and Cecilia. While I stayed silent, the workers had already finished moving out all of Cecilia's furniture. I'm off. She smiled at me before taking a few steps away. Then, she suddenly turned back, lightly patting my shoulder. Stop thinking so little of yourself. Irene, people always look forward. No one cares about your past, except for you. Galen and I had a period of carefree days together. He didn't have much money, but he never hesitated to spend on me. Not that I needed much. As long as I had enough to eat, enough to wear, and didn't have to please those disgusting men with my body, I was content. Having someone to stay with me, love me, that was all I needed for a good life. Every moment with Galen felt like stolen time, too beautiful to be real. Irene had always been known as the notorious flirt in our circle, but Galen had truly turned me into a simple girl. I'd throw myself into his arms for a little strawberry cake, tremble at a kiss, or burst into tears over a carefully chosen gift. But I never had the courage to tell him about my illness. He knew everything about my past, except for this one thing. The blood on the sheets that night wasn't from a cut finger. It was from a nosebleed in the middle of the night. These good days, I probably wouldn't be able to enjoy them much longer. On a rainy day, while Galen was out dealing with something, I slipped away to a tattoo parlor by myself. Pointing to the spot just under my left collarbone, I told the artist, tattoo a name here, Galen. No one had told me how painful tattoos were. But for some reason, even though the tattoo was just below my collarbone, it felt like it was pulling at my heart and soul. I gritted my teeth and endured it until it was done. Staring at the reddened skin in the mirror, the letters Galen sitting so close to my heart, I let out a small laugh. Then I collapsed to the ground, unconscious. It felt like I slept forever, lost in a daze. When I opened my eyes, I saw Galen. He was sitting by the bed, looking more disheveled than I'd ever seen him, his chin covered in stubble, and his eyes bloodshot. Irene. He grabbed my hand, but then quickly loosened his grip, like he was afraid of hurting me. You're awake? His voice was hoarse. A crowd of people gathered around the bed, Galen's friends were there too. Why didn't you tell me? Galen's fists clenched on his lap, like he was fighting to hold something back. Why didn't you get treatment? Because, there's no point. I smiled, rubbing my hand against his. Blood disease. It was already too late when they found it. I can prolong my life, but it won't save me. Galen tried to say something, but his voice choked. Treatment. He tightened his grip on my hand. There is treatment. I have money. I'll find the best doctors for you. I'll drag them here if I have to. I shook my head. I don't want treatment, Galen. I don't want to suffer, and I don't want to waste the money. Plus, chemo makes you lose your hair. I'd look awful. I just want to stay pretty for as long as I can, and spend that time with you. The room fell into a terrifying silence. Then, I heard quiet sobbing. Even Galen's friends were crying. Irene, we can all pitch in for the money. You just focus on getting better. Don't leave Galen alone. When you're not with him, he's like a robot with no home. Since he met you, he finally seems more alive. Galen's eyes were bloodshot, tears brimming, but held back by sheer willpower. He held my hand, his voice pleading. Irene, please get treatment, okay? Let me have more time with you. Please. I couldn't find the words to answer. Okay. Maybe, just maybe, there could be a miracle. Galen researched a lot and brought me to a hospital known for its hematology department. He got me an appointment with a specialist and went into the consultation room with me. Age? 22. But at that moment, I gripped Galen's hand and quietly, a little selfishly, thought. No, I'm only 2. Because my life really only began the day I met Galen. Bit by bit, stubbornly and recklessly, he dragged me out of the abyss. Galen is the very definition of salvation for me. But after several hospitals and tests, the result was always the same. It's too late. They couldn't save me. The doctors could only promise to prolong my life as much as possible. That day, Galen almost smashed up the hospital. After I calmed him down, he crouched by the entrance and lit a cigarette. Before he'd even finished it, he broke down. He crushed the cigarette into the ground over and over, while big, heavy tears rolled down his face. He said, Irene. How do I keep you here with me? After all the back and forth, Dr. Jack became my attending physician again. He arranged my hospital stay, put together a treatment plan, and started me on chemotherapy. Galen stayed with me almost 24/7. For someone who lived so rough, he was incredibly careful when it came to me. Even though I could still walk, he insisted on pushing me around in a wheelchair, only letting me stroll around the hospital garden when we got there. One morning, as Galen pushed me out to get some sun, we ran into someone I hadn't expected to see. The pregnant woman who had patted my back in the bathroom that day. Also put on some weight. Her husband carefully supported her as they walked into the hospital. Watch your step, he said gently. They looked so happy. I sat in my wheelchair, quietly watching her. Coincidentally, she turned around and her gaze landed on me. Is it you? She still remembered me. She patted her husband's hand, signaling him to help her walk towards me. You. She glanced at my hospital gown and then at the wheelchair. What happened to you? I smiled faintly. Just a minor illness. Not wanting to continue that topic, I shifted my gaze to her belly. You're about to have the baby, right? Yes. She instinctively touched her stomach. The due date is next month. I have a feeling it's going to be a girl. Talking about the unborn child brought a soft warmth to her features. She's been so good, barely kicks at all. That's wonderful. I waved at her. You're here for a checkup, right? Go ahead. I'm just staying here to get some sun. She nodded. Take care of yourself. I hope you get well soon. Thank you. With her husband's help, she walked away. As she turned, I overheard her softly telling her husband. That's the girl I met in the bar restroom last time. She's cool and kind. I froze for a moment and then chuckled softly. Cool and kind. I never imagined someone would describe me like that one day. The weather was great today. The warm sunlight enveloped both me and that pregnant woman. Just a few meters apart, yet we were in 2 completely different worlds. She was preparing to welcome a new life. And I. Was waiting for my fate's final conclusion. Sitting in this wheelchair, I could see the end of my life in one glance. Summer was gradually ending. Autumn had arrived. The trees in the hospital yard were turning yellow, leaves scattered all around. I had lost even more weight. Every time Galen helped me change my clothes, his eyes would redden, unable to linger too long on my body. The only thing that cheered me up a bit was hearing the news of Evan's bankruptcy. Cecilia had promised me that day, and she kept her word. She was indeed a good girl. She even came to visit me in the hospital. Even though we were once love rivals, she sat by my bedside for a while. Before we said much, her eyes had already reddened. She gently held my hand, her voice slightly nasal. "You'll get better," she said. "I still remember the first time I saw you. Even though I knew Galen liked you, I couldn't help but think, how could someone be so beautiful? Every little movement of yours is so graceful, but your eyes are so pure." She didn't stay long, just gave my hand a soft pat before leaving. "Let me know if you need anything. Money's not an issue." I smiled at her. "Okay." Cecilia left. But not long after, when Galen went downstairs to buy me food, Evan showed up. He had been drinking. He stood at the door, eyes red, staring at me for a long time, before slowly walking in. "Irene." It was the first time he called me by my name. "Why didn't you tell me you were sick?" I frowned. "Leave." But he acted like he didn't hear me, walked straight to my bedside, and squatted down, his gaze scanning every inch of my face and body, eyes burning red. Such a show of deep emotion. "You were already sick when you were with me, weren't you? Why didn't you tell me?" He reached out to hold my hand. "I could have helped you. If you had told me earlier, I wouldn't have. I wouldn't have pushed you to Galen." I dodged his hand and reached for my phone on the bedside table, but he pressed my wrist down. "Irene." He squatted in front of my bed, putting on a deeply emotional expression. "Let me marry you." Suddenly, angry shouts came from the doorway. Galen's friends had come to visit, bringing fruit. They rushed over, and one of them kicked Evan hard in the back. Evan had been squatting, so the kick sent him straight to his knees in front of me. Evan was no longer the heir to his family fortune. His family's business had collapsed, leaving them with billions in debt. His father couldn't handle the shock and had been hospitalized. As for Evan, a pampered second-generation heir who knew nothing but how to waste time, his family would never recover. Why was he coming to me now? It was just the instinct of someone who had fallen from grace, trying to grasp at something to prove they still had some control over their life. And that whole performance of deep love? It was his usual tactic. He didn't truly love Cecilia, nor did he really like me. He was just obsessed with what he had lost. I quietly watched Evan, who was now pinned to the ground before me, and spoke indifferently. "Pathetic. Evan, without your rich father, you really are less than a dog. What makes you think you can compare to Galen?" Galen's friends dragged Evan out into the hallway. Without the shield of wealth, burdened by debt, he was at the mercy of people like them, who treated him like nothing. The room finally quieted down. After the commotion, I felt exhausted, drained of energy. The sky outside had turned gloomy, no sun in sight. Suddenly, I had a premonition. It seemed I wouldn't be able to stay with Galen much longer. What a pity. I had fought through so much, just hoping to live a little longer. But I still couldn't escape the fate of a short life. If I had known, I wouldn't have gotten involved with Galen in the first place. Coming into his life only to leave so soon, what a brief, fleeting moment. I was truly sorry. They say that people become kinder as they approach death. But I seemed to have grown more selfish. I had spent my whole life as someone else's shadow. But at the end of it all, I just didn't want to be anymore. On that afternoon, when the sky was as dark as dusk, I grabbed Galen's wrist. I only managed to say one word before I stopped. I didn't even know what to ask. Was she beautiful? Do I look like her? Does she not love you? What? Galen sat by the bed, peeling an apple for me, but his mind seemed elsewhere. The peel kept breaking and falling onto the floor. I bit my lip and softly asked, "Was she a good girl?" I thought, if Galen liked her, she must have been wonderful. Galen paused, surprised. After a moment, he put down the apple and took my hand, patiently asking in a low voice, "Who?" "I saw the photo in your wallet." I looked at him, wanting to laugh, but ending up crying. "Galen, I look so much like her. Am I just her shadow too?" Slowly, I lifted my hand, pulling aside his shirt collar, gently brushing my fingers over the tattoo of my name on his skin. "Why did you get my name tattooed?" "You're such a fool." Galen was stunned for a while before he suddenly grabbed my hand. "She." But it seemed I couldn't wait for his answer anymore. I felt a sweet taste rising in my throat. Despite trying to suppress it, I couldn't hold it back. I started coughing violently, like I was about to cough up my entire insides. Finally, I spat out a mouthful of blood and slipped into unconsciousness. In the haze, I heard many voices. Hurried footsteps. Galen shouting, "Doctor! Doctor, save her!" The choked comfort from his friends. I thought I even heard Galen's voice. "It's you. The girl in the photo is you. It's always been you. Irene, I've known you much longer than you think. Back then, a group of people beat me half to death in an alley. You were the one who called the police and saved me. You even gave me a tiny band-aid that couldn't cover any of my wounds. After that, I would secretly follow you sometimes. That photo, I secretly took it, but it only shows your profile. But when you turned 16, you suddenly disappeared. You never went back to those places. I waited every day, but never saw you again. Until I met you in that bar. You still dressed the same, but I knew right away that you had changed. I didn't care why you came to me. I just felt sorry for you. I thought I could protect you now. I thought." He choked up, unable to continue speaking. The last thing I heard was his muffled crying. "I never told you, because I've always hated myself. If I had been braver, if I had not been watching you silently, but had taken the initiative to get to know you, then when you were in danger, I would have rushed over to save you. I have met you twice in my life, but I failed to save you both times." Something dripped onto my face. It was so hot that it hit my soul. I wanted to tell him, "Galen, don't cry. You have already saved me." It was he who made me understand that I am worthy of being loved, and I am not a flower rotting in the mud. I am Irene. I am Galen's girlfriend. I am also worthy of the beauty of this world. A perfect match, a top match. My consciousness gradually became dazed. I seemed to see the day when I first met Galen in my memory. In the dim bar, he smashed the middle-aged man who had approached him with a bottle, then bent over and pulled me up from the ground. Those eyes looked at me quietly. It was bottomless. "Looking for someone?" I nodded slowly. "Who?" "My boyfriend. Not the temporary boyfriend who was hired to act in a play. My boyfriend's name is Galen. And